Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling negotiation, but not just any old negotiation tactics.
Right. This is going to be interesting.
We're going deep into the world of hostage negotiation with Never Split the Difference, a book by Chris Voss, a former FBI hostage negotiator.
Exactly. A lead international kidnapping negotiator.
Wow. So high stakes to say the least.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. These techniques can be used in everyday situations.
Oh, absolutely.
Appealing with your landlord, salary negotiations,
That sorts of stuff.
even customer service. And he uses real hostage negotiation stories to illustrate.
He does. It's a really, really compelling read.
Oh, absolutely.
Because of those stories.
Yeah, so you're like watching an action movie,
Yeah.
but also learning how to be a better negotiator.
That's exactly it.
So the first thing we're going to jump into is something that was counterintuitive to me.
Okay.
Voss says that no is more valuable than yes. And when I first read that, I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Isn't negotiation all about getting to yes?
Right.
But he has some pretty compelling arguments.
Oh, he does.
Can you kind of unpack that for us? Why is no so valuable?
Well, yes is often just a mask
Ah, okay.
to avoid conflict or to seem agreeable. But no means that they're engaged and they're actually thinking critically.
Okay, so it shows that they're actually like present in the conversation.
Yes, exactly.
Not just trying to rush through it.
Right, exactly. And they're ready to voice their true concerns.
Okay, so you're getting more honesty out of a no
You are.
than a yes.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so how do we actually use this no to our advantage in a negotiation?
Well, Voss he experienced this power of no himself. When he first applied to the FBI's crisis negotiation team, they told him he didn't have the right background.
Ah, okay.
Most people would have given up right then and there, but he didn't. He saw that as a challenge. He got the experience that they wanted and eventually became the FBI's lead international kidnapping negotiator.
So he turned a no into a big yes. So for us regular people, not FBI negotiators, how can we use this power of no in like everyday negotiations?
Well, think of it this way. When you create a space where someone feels comfortable saying no without judgment,
Right.
you build trust, and that encourages them to open up.
So it's about that psychological safety,
Yeah.
not being afraid to disagree or to say no.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, another interesting concept that Voss talks about is this thing called tactical empathy.
Yes.
And again, this kind of threw me off at first because I'm like, tactical and empathy, those kind of seem at odds with each other.
Right.
So can you explain what he means by tactical empathy?
It's not about being nice or giving in. It's about strategically understanding the other person's perspective.
Okay, so it's more about using empathy as a tool
Exactly, to gain advantage in the negotiation.
to get inside their head, to figure out what they're really thinking and feeling.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so how do we actually practice this? Give me some actionable, tools. How do I actually implement tactical empathy?
One of the things that Voss talks about is mirroring, and it's simply repeating the last three words
Okay.
of what someone says. It subconsciously signals that you're listening intently.
So I'm basically mimicking them.
In a way, yes.
Okay.
But it's very subtle, and there was a study where waiters got higher tips
No way.
just by mirroring.
Just by repeating the last three words.
Yes.
That's wild.
It creates a connection.
So it's not about like parroting them or mocking them. It's about showing them that you're really tuned in.
Exactly.
Okay. That's really interesting. Now, another technique that he talks about is labeling.
Yes.
So what is labeling?
That is when you acknowledge their emotions by actually naming them. Like you would say something like, it sounds like you're frustrated,
Oh, okay.
or it seems like you're concerned about the deadline.
So you're kind of calling out the elephant in the room.
You are.
But in a way that's like acknowledging it. Okay. So I can see how that could be helpful, especially in a tense situation.
Yes.
But would it also make things awkward?
Actually, it does the opposite.
Really?
Labeling helps diffuse those negative emotions.
Okay.
And it makes it less intimidating by bringing it out into the open.
So you're kind of taking the power away from that unspoken tension
Exactly.
and making it something that you can actually address.
Yes. And he gives a great story in the book about a student who was able to use this technique with a demanding boss.
Oh, wow.
And just by labeling her emotions, she was able to shift the whole dynamic of the conversation.
That's amazing. So by just acknowledging their emotions, you can actually disarm them
Yes.
and create a more collaborative environment.
You can.
Wow. That's a really cool tool. All right, so we've talked about tactical empathy.
Yes.
Now we're going to get into something that Voss calls bending reality.
Yes.
And this is where things start to get really interesting for me.
Yeah.
Because it's all about psychology and how people perceive gains and losses.
Right.
So how do we bend reality in a negotiation?
It's based on something called prospect theory, which means that people hate losing more than they love winning.
Ah, okay.
And he gives this great example about negotiating a daily rate for bodyguards in Haiti. He started with a ridiculously low offer.
Wow.
Because he knew that the kidnapper would be so averse to losing any potential payment.
Okay. So he's playing on their fear of loss more than their desire for gain.
Exactly.
Okay. That's really interesting. And did it work?
It did.
Wow.
He ended up paying a lot less than they were asking for.
So it's about setting the stage.
It is.
Playing with their perception.
Right.
Almost like you're a magician in a way.
In a way, yes.
Subtly influencing their reality. That's really cool.
It is.
Are there any other ways to bend reality?
He also suggests using non-round numbers. It makes it feel like you've really put a lot of thought into it.
Like it's not just some arbitrary number you pulled out of thin air.
Right.
Okay. So it's a subtle way of signaling that you've done your homework.
Exactly.
Okay. So those are some really great tips. Now, it's not just about making offers.
No.
It's also about asking the right questions.
It is.
And Voss talks about this idea of calibrated questions.
Yes.
So what are calibrated questions?
They're open-ended questions that start with how or what.
Okay.
And they're designed to get the other person talking and reveal their needs and their concerns.
So instead of saying, I need X,
Right.
you're asking, how can we make X happen?
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Can you give us an example of a calibrated question in action?
Absolutely. There's a great story in the book about a man named Jose who was kidnapped in the Ecuadorian jungle. And they were asking for a huge ransom, but by using calibrated questions like, how do we know he's alive?
Oh.
What guarantee do we have that he'll be released? They were able to chip away at their resolve.
So they're shifting the focus from the ransom.
They are.
To the logistics.
Yes.
To the risk.
Yes.
To the guarantees.
Yeah.
Okay. And it worked.
It did.
Wow.
That's
really clever. Now, it's not just about getting to yes either.
Right.
Voss talks about seeking that, like, not just yes.
Yes.
So how is that's right different from yes?
Yes, it's just an agreement. That's right. It means you've connected with them.
Ah.
They understand your perspective.
It's a deeper level of agreement.
It is.
Okay. So how do we get them to say that's right?
It goes back to those calibrated questions.
Okay.
And listening to their responses.
So it's not just about asking the question.
No.
It's
No.
about really paying attention to how they answer.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
And there's an example in the book where a doctor used calibrated questions to convince a patient to stay in the hospital.
Oh, well.
Even though he was determined to leave.
So it's like you're guiding them to the solution.
Yes.
Without them even realizing it.
Exactly.
That's a really cool technique. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But there's one more really crucial concept that I want to touch on before we move on.
Okay.
And that's the idea of black swans.
Yes.
Now, I've heard of like black swan events, but how does this apply to negotiation?
Think of them as hidden pieces of information that can change the entire game.
So like something unexpected
Yes.
that could completely flip the script.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Voss illustrates this point with a tragic case about a bank robber named Griffin. And the negotiators thought they had him figured out, but they were missing some crucial black swan information.
Like what?
They didn't know that he had committed a double homicide earlier that day,
Oh, well.
which made him much more volatile than they originally anticipated.
Right.
And they also missed a crucial detail that was buried in this rambling note that he had a hostage read. It mentioned his father's suicide.
Oh, wow.
And that was a very traumatic event for him.
So had they known this,
Yeah.
they might have approached the situation very differently.
Very differently. Yeah.
Wow. So this really underscores the importance of listening.
It does.
And not just hearing the words,
Right.
but like really picking up on those subtle clues.
Yeah.
That might reveal something really important.
Yes. Those hidden clues.
Okay. So it's about being more observant, asking those probing questions, and really paying attention to what the other person is saying, both verbally and non-verbally.
Exactly.
It's like becoming a negotiation detective.
Yes.
Okay. So now that we have a good understanding of some of these core concepts from Never Split the Difference,
Yes.
we're going to dive into some more specific tactics and strategies in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
So stay tuned.
Right.
So it's like finding that missing puzzle piece that suddenly, like, unlocks the whole mystery.
Exactly.
And in negotiation, that could be a game changer.
It could.
All right, so now we're going to move from those core concepts to some more specific strategies. And Voss actually identifies 3 main types of negotiators.
Deep dive.
He calls them the analyst, the accommodator, and the assertive.
Uh-huh.
And he says understanding these styles can be a huge advantage in a negotiation.
It can.
So let's start with the analyst.
Okay.
What are their defining characteristics?
They're very data-driven, very logical, methodical, detail-oriented.
Oh, I know a few analysts.
Yeah, they love spreadsheets, charts, well-researched arguments.
So like the chess players of the negotiation world.
Exactly. They're thinking several steps ahead.
Okay, so if I'm dealing with an analyst,
Mm-hmm.
how should I approach that negotiation?
Be prepared. Be organized. Have all your evidence.
No emotional appeals.
No, stick to the facts.
Stick to the data.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, what about the accommodator?
Okay, the accommodator is the total opposite of the analyst.
Oh, okay.
They prioritize harmony relationships.
The peacemakers.
Yes, they want everyone to be happy.
I love accommodators.
Yes.
But I imagine their desire to please could also make them vulnerable in a negotiation.
They might give away too much.
Right, they're not going to hold their ground as firmly.
Maybe not.
Okay, so if I'm dealing with an accommodator, what's the best approach?
Be warm. Be friendly. Focus on building that relationship.
But of course, always be ethical.
Always.
Don't exploit their kindness.
Right.
Right, okay. And finally, the assertive.
The assertive, they're direct, confident,
Okay.
focused on getting what they want.
The power players.
Yeah, they come to the table ready to make a deal on their terms.
And how do you handle an assertive type?
Be clear, be confident, stand your ground,
Okay.
but also avoid an ego battle.
Don't let them steamroll you, but also don't get into a shouting match.
Exactly.
So it's about finding that balance.
Yes,
Okay, this whole negotiator typology is fascinating.
it is.
It's like having a secret decoder ring for understanding the people across the table.
It's true.
But beyond these styles, Voss talks about something he calls knowing their religion. Now, it's not talking about actual religious beliefs here, right? So what does he mean by knowing their religion?
It's about understanding their values, their principles, what motivates them.
So their driving force.
Yes, and he gives a compelling story about this tobacco farmer who drove his tractor to Washington, D.C. and threatened to blow it up.
Wow. Okay, what was his religion?
Well, he felt the government was unfairly targeting tobacco farmers and destroying his livelihood.
So it wasn't just about the money or the policy. It was about a deeper sense of injustice.
Exactly. It was a matter of principle for him.
Okay, so the negotiators had to understand that core value in order to resolve the situation.
They did.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is.
All right, so now we're going to move on to the final part of our deep dive, where we're going to continue exploring these negotiation tactics and strategies from never split the difference.
Sounds great. And that leads us to one of the most important concepts in the book. Never split the difference.
Now, that's the title of the book.
Right.
And it seems counterintuitive because in a negotiation, we're always told to compromise.
Right. Meet in the middle.
Right. So why is splitting the difference such a bad idea, according to Voss?
Because it assumes that both sides value things equally.
Mm-hmm.
And that's rarely the case.
Right. So one side might be giving up something that's really important to them,
Yes.
while the other side is giving up something that's not so important.
Exactly.
And neither side really feels like a winner.
Right. And it can breed resentment.
Okay, so instead of splitting the difference, what does Voss suggest we do?
Dig deeper. Understand the real needs and the motivations.
So find that win-win.
Yes.
That creative solution that addresses everyone's needs.
Exactly.
Okay, can you give us an example of how this works in practice?
He tells this great story about a kidnapping in Haiti, where he was brought in to negotiate, and the kidnappers were demanding a huge ransom.
Right.
Splitting the difference would have cost them a fortune,
Right.
but he refused to do that.
So what did he do?
Well, he realized that they weren't just motivated by money.
Oh.
They also craved respect. They wanted to be heard.
So he tapped into their religion,
Exactly.
as we talked about earlier. Okay, and how did that work out?
They were able to negotiate the hostages' release for much less than they were asking for.
Wow. It's incredible. So by understanding their deeper needs, he was able to find that hidden space for negotiation.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, Voss also encourages us to be aware of our own negotiating style.
Right?
So Thinking back to those analyst, accommodator, and assertive types that we discussed,
Mm-hmm.
knowing our own tendencies can help us be more effective, right?
Absolutely.
So if I know that I tend to be too accommodating,
Right.
I can work on being more assertive when needed
Yes, you can play to your strengths.
and avoid those pitfalls.
Huh.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Now, I want to talk about preparation
Yeah.
because I think this is something that a lot of us neglect when it comes to negotiation.
It's true.
We often just wing it.
We do.
So what does Voss say about preparation?
He has this great line, fall to your highest level of preparation.
Oh, I like that.
And he actually gives you a tool in the appendix
Okay.
called the negotiation one sheet.
Okay.
And it's a template for mapping out your strategy.
So thinking through,
Yeah.
what are my goals?
Your goals.
What are their motivations?
Yes.
What are my key tactics?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like having a game plan
Exactly.
before you even step onto the field.
Exactly.
Okay. And he also recommends practicing these skills in low-stakes situations,
He does.
like ordering coffee
Right.
or bargaining at a flea market.
Right.
So just getting comfortable with the process.
Getting comfortable with the process.
Yeah, and building that confidence.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground today in our deep dive into Never Split the Difference.
We have.
It's been an incredible journey into the world of negotiation. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is that negotiation is not just about tactics.
Right.
It's about psychology.
It is.
It's about building relationships.
Yes.
And it's about finding creative solutions that work for everyone involved.
Absolutely.
So if you're looking to up your negotiation game, whether it's in your personal life, your professional life, or even just dealing with everyday situations,
Yes.
I highly recommend checking out Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
I do too.
It's a game changer.
It is.
And I hope you've enjoyed our deep dive into this fascinating book.
Me too.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive into a different topic. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep negotiating like a pro.
Bye, everyone.